gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? The show starts in 3, 2, 1, go.
Good morning, CaneSport. It's April the 22nd, 2024. I'm Gary Ferman, the publisher of CaneSport.com, joined once again today by our managing editor, Matt Shodell, as we discuss the news of the day. And the weekend is over. Matt Shodell has been the grouchiest I think I've seen him in, I don't know, at least 4 or 5 months since Miami finished off its football season with a loss to Rutgers. And that's because we are in the heart of the transfer portal cycle. This week is really when the nitty meets the gritty. And Matt, there's not a lot of free agents out there that we're finding. I'll tell you that. And not a lot of free agents that the Miami Hurricanes are finding. So unfortunately, the transfer portal is turning out, in this 2024 spring edition is turning out, I don't know, I'm not even going to say similar to others because I haven't been disappointed with what they found in the portal. I know you have at times not liked it very much, but I don't know that Miami is going to walk out of this with a lot of impact players. It looks to me like they're going to come out of it with a few rotation guys and not a ton of differentiating talent. And I'll start there with you. I want to go through some of the specifics here in a second, but are you surprised at all? There was so much buildup to this spring transfer period around the country, and people were anticipating the impact it might make on college football rosters, at least at the higher levels of the game, where teams are trying to get in position to contend for conference titles and make the college football playoff. And we're just not seeing it, man. I don't know. We might be missing something, but we're not seeing it.
I mean, these college coaches just suck at tampering. They suck at giving out bags. They need to really up their game. There's a major problem in college football. There's not enough cheating. That's the only thing I can attribute it to. But first of all, my baseline is grouchy. So to say I'm grouchy is just like, it's just another day, man. I mean, there's no need to say it out loud. The transfer portal, it surprises me in the sense that these student athletes, well, just athletes, they still haven't figured out, or their agents haven't convinced them, or whatever it is. I don't know, that if you're a great college football player, and if you don't have an NIL contract that stipulates that you have to be there, I don't know how they write these NIL contracts. My feeling is a lot of these schools are figuring out ways, and these companies are figuring out ways, because these NIL contracts aren't public, to sort of lock these guys down, where if they leave, there are ways you have to pay back your money or whatever it is. Look, contract's a contract. There's no uniform NIL contract like like you're signing a lease for an apartment where they're all sort of pretty similar. So if a collective wants to give $1.5 million to somebody, Cam Ward, and he decides to leave after 3 months or whatever it is, or who knows, whatever. And because he can leave again. He's a graduate. He can leave in August if he wants to and enroll somewhere else, right?
He's not leaving.
I know he's not leaving. This is a hypothetical for anybody. Okay. Well, we'll call him Sam Bard. Okay. If Sam Bard decides to leave on August 1st and he signed an NIL deal for $1.5 million, and you've already paid him $600,000 of that for not a single game because they pay by the month, there's some protections, I'm sure, written in there to make sure he sticks around or has to pay back the money. So, maybe that's part of why the portal hasn't blown up, because it makes no sense logically why every top student athlete wouldn't go in the portal. I was talking to my wife's a bigger sports fan than I am. I was talking about this yesterday. And if in the NFL every day was free agency, wouldn't every NFL player be a free agent? The agents and the players love free agency after a big year. That's their big payday. Every day in the NCAA is free agency, every single day if you've graduated. There's no portal window. If you're a star player and you're a junior, a redshirt junior, a senior, a redshirt senior, and you've graduated, you can go in the portal anytime you want. Anytime you want. And if you're not, if you're a sophomore, redshirt sophomore, a dumbass who hasn't graduated yet and you're a redshirt senior, sorry, I don't. Can you still say dumbass? I don't know. But if you haven't graduated and you're a redshirt senior, you can still go in the portal during the prescribed windows. So we're in one of those now. So I don't understand. If it was an NFL player, I think every great NFL player would be a free agent if they could right now. If they just had a great year, they would. Of course they would. And you could still go back to the team you're on for the same amount of money regardless, because, like, why wouldn't you, right? So my guess is there's some safeguards, or who knows, maybe they say we'll murder you if you try to leave. I don't know. But, I'm watching Griselda. That's why I say that, okay? Nobody's murdering anybody except for Griselda. So I don't understand why it's not a much bigger talent pool in the portal. It makes no sense, other than contracts might have locked guys in. And besides that, I think maybe Mario in Miami thought that there would be, like everyone else, like logically, hey, there's going to be 1 million people out there. We can supplement our roster however we need. It hasn't worked out that way. And you know what? It's not the worst thing in the world for Miami. They're at, if you look at our tracker right now, I think they're still 2 over, even with all the departures. Yeah. And so if they take just 3 or 4 guys instead of the 6 to 12 that Gary predicted, right? Then you still got to jettison another
6 to 8. I said
whatever. Then you still have to jettison another. Let's say you take 3 more guys. That's probably the bottom limit. I imagine they're definitely taking a running back, Damian Martinez. I think they're dead set and taking one of the 2 receivers they're after. You could check the portal, our portal tracker, and all this stuff. And they're dead set on taking a defensive tackle. They're definitely taking those 3, and they're probably going to try to take a cornerback. So we're going to go with 4. Okay, they're definitely going to take 4. That puts them 7 over right now. After all these departures, you got to cut another 7 guys off the roster right now, and that's at the bare minimum. So, and there's only a week left of the portal. So I don't know when.
A week left for guys to go in the portal.
A week left.
They don't have to make a decision.
Sorry, of course, yeah, of course, yeah. If they don't go in the portal and they haven't graduated, they can't. They're screwed. Like Mario said goodbye to them, and I don't know. I guess they're working at the milkshake stand for the next baseball loss. I don't know. At least the baseball team won yesterday. That's nice. They won a game. Second win in 12 games. Woohoo! Throw a party. I've talked way too long. That's all I have to say about it. The whole thing.
I don't have to interrupt you.
Yeah, the whole thing is just, I don't like the portal. Period. I don't like the whole system. The NCAA has figured out a way to just really screw themselves somehow. Like, what company tries to put themselves out of business? The NCAA is trying its hardest to bankrupt itself, to put itself out of business, to have every college, it's basically just a union of colleges, to just basically have every college say, you know what, we're just gonna figure it out ourselves. We're done with you guys, because that's pretty much probably what every college president would say right now. The NCAA has screwed this up so badly that literally there has to be Congress legislation and some dude who's trying to run the whole operation now and figure it out. Because the NCAA is not smart enough. The institution that says you have to take the SAT and ACT again, when they previously said, you don't have to take it. This is the college system. The whole college system, the price of college, like, there's nothing about the college system that makes any sense, from academic admissions policies to the way they run athletics. It's just the most insane system I've ever seen. They should go free market, private. Every school should be a private college from now on, and just whoever wants to pay whatever they can afford to pay. The college is like, okay, you can pay this much, we'll take you, or no, we won't. Let's just do that. That's the Matt Shodell College. I'm opening my own university. That's what we're going to do.
All right. I've restrained myself. I haven't interrupted you, but I got a few things to say. All right. Number 1, this is the 3rd straight Good Morning CaneSport show that you're wearing that Florida Gator t-shirt. Okay, I will remind you that the Gators.
Look at the snout. It's a crocodile. You can't tell from the snout. Do you not understand wildlife? Have you not watched a single? What's the name of that guy who does all the wildlife shows?
It doesn't matter.
The guy who's like, the frozen tundra is where the wild goats love to go to play in the sunshine in the winter. I think Attenborough, something Attenborough. I used to watch it when I was a kid. He's got some weird British accent. I think it's fake. He's probably like some Brooklyn guy.
Please have respect for who the season opening opponent is this season, and take that T-shirt.
Are they playing the Crocodiles? If they're playing the Crocodiles, I'll stop wearing the damn T-shirt. All right.
You can call them the Gators. You can call them the Crocodiles. Whatever you want. It's the University of Florida. That's who they're playing as the season opening opponent this year.
Is their color green? This is a hurricane green.
Respect. The Gator colors are blue also, and have some respect. and
Blue.
crumble that thing
Are you
up.
colorblind? It's green. It's
That's not
hurricane green.
I don't know. That's not green. But listen, have some respect.
This is
Take
not
that
green?
shirt. I want you to crumble that shirt up.
It blends perfectly with the Matt Shodell color.
I don't know. I want you to crumble it up, put it in the back of the closet,
No.
and not wear it on this show anymore. Okay, that's number one. All right. Number two, let's not make a mistake. There's going to be a lot of activity this week. Okay, like you mentioned, Mario's probably got to cut. I'm guessing 8 guys at least. I think on the low side they'll take 6 transfers, and we're going to talk about that here in a second. So there's going to be a lot of outgoing. Okay, now just so you guys understand, and Mario handles this about, in all honesty, and I know I'm going to probably get criticized for saying good things about Mario, but he handles this about as well as a head coach can handle it. Okay, they work hard to try to help guys find landing spots, not just where they can go to school, but where they can also get NIL deals, because every player has an NIL deal at Miami, and they understand that they recruited these guys to come play at Miami, and they're just not good enough. Okay, you make a mistake sometimes. This staff has not made a lot of mistakes. There's one guy in the current class that I think I would call a colossal mistake, and we might see him in the portal this early because it makes no sense for him to stay. He's not competing very well at all. I'm going to be nice. I'm not going to say his name right now, but his mom could be watching, but they try to find them landing spots to where they can still make NIL money. If that fails, well, then it fails. But they try to do the right thing by the kids, but at the same time, they have to do the right thing by the program. And you can't run a college football program in today's competitive world without utilizing every single window that you have to make your roster better. And that is what we are seeing right now, an attempt to do that. And it will continue this week. Now, the other thing I'm going to throw out there is, even though we are underwhelmed by what's in the transfer portal, these guys still have another week to go in the portal. There's going to be guys that come into the portal this week that aren't there right now. And that could be a game changer for any school out there. And it's going to be very interesting to see what new guys this week, because I do believe there will be some that Miami sees go in the portal and gets on and makes part of the equation here in this transfer portal process. So we got our eyes on that here as we go into this week. But if you're looking for some sizzle, it remains Oregon State running back Damian Martinez. He will be visiting Miami this next weekend. He visited Arizona and Mississippi State already. Today he is going to Kentucky. Okay, so Miami has home visited him. He's made visits to these schools. He's visiting the last one today, and then he will be at the U this weekend. Okay, that's closing time. Okay, I will be so shocked, and I know I went out on the limb and I said you can book that this guy will be a Miami Hurricane, and I don't feel any differently here. A week and a half later, I believe Damian Martinez is going to be a Miami Hurricane. He will be here the next weekend. I will be surprised if the weekend ends without a commitment from Damian Martinez, and we'll see how that plays out. I'm also personally encouraged by what we're seeing at the wide receiver position. Over the weekend, I reported that Arizona State wide receiver Elijah Badger had joined the mix at wide receiver, and this guy is a pretty intriguing prospect. I mean, he's got 135 catches in the last 2 seasons for 1,579 yards and 10 touchdowns. Alabama wants him. Texas A&M wants him. Not going to be easy to get Mr. Badger, no doubt about it. And the thing I also really like about him is he returns kicks relatively successfully. So, Matt, I think that in Badger, Martinez, you certainly have what you like to call a free agent. I would call Badger a free agent as well. I really would. And, the other receiver that is in the mix is from Houston. His name is Sam Brown. I'm not as totally sold on Brown as I am on Badger. I mean, Brown's an okay prospect from Houston. Shannon Dawson is familiar with him a little bit from his time at Houston, and so he's in the mix. Apparently, Arizona, Michigan, Texas A&M, and Alabama are looking out for him. But if you want to include Brown, fine. These three guys, Matt, to me, are probably what you would call free agents, correct?
Well, look. Okay, let's start at the beginning. I mean, NIL deals have gotten so crazy now. There was a lady who wheeled her dead uncle into a bank and tried to withdraw $3,000 saying that he was actually alive. Okay? That's how insane it's gotten, trying to get NIL money for these collectives. They're sending these women in with dead people. I don't know if that was for a collective. I'm assuming so. But forget the free agent thing, because here's what doesn't make sense to me. You know, you're talking about these two receivers maybe are free agents in your opinion. I would agree Badger is, but Miami's seeking a number 3 wide receiver who's a free agent. If you're that receiver, okay, because they have Xavier Restrepo on paper, right? If you're a transfer portal wide receiver right now, and you're looking, hey, is Miami a good spot for me? I got 1 year, I'm going to go to the NFL. You say, Xavier Restrepo's back, 1,000 yards. Jacoby George is back, whatever he had, 800 yards, 8 touchdowns, right? I'm the number 3 option there, you know. Oh, and wait, they got Elijah Arroyo healthy. They got a guy Lofton who they think they're going to, get 500 yards receiving. The reporters think that. Matt Shodell thinks that. Is he coming here? Like, when we talked to Martinez's agent, he said they turned down the top 5 offers already that he got money-wise, because it's about eventually getting a lot of money with your dead uncle at the bank in the NFL. And if Badger comes to Miami, I'd be surprised. I'm sorry to say it. Like, everyone thinks that everyone Miami goes after, they're going to get. If I'm Badger, I'm going to a place where I'm the number 1 receiver. Just like when Charleston Rambo came to Miami. He didn't come to Miami when they had a 1,000-yard receiver and an 850-yard receiver coming back. He came to Miami when they had nothing. They had Mike Harley coming off one good year, but Mike Harley was in the slot. They had no outside receivers, right? Right now, Miami's got one of the best slot receivers and one of the best outside receivers returning in the ACC. It's not a great situation to be able to land a free agent wide receiver who wants to go to the NFL with 1 year where he's the guy getting 80 catches and 1,200 yards. If Badger comes to Miami, it's great he's a free agent, but he's probably a 705 touchdown guy. Like, because Xavier Restrepo's the number 1 target. You can't cover that guy one-on-one.
You can't say that, though.
And Jacoby George had 1 year starting where I thought he was excellent without his head even on straight. And I think he's got as much potential as Xavier to get 1,000 yards. So, you can go on and on, Gary, that and say,
with Badger. You don't know where the ball is going to go. You don't know how the defenses are going to play. You can't predict the entire season every single game. And, if I'm Badger and I like Miami, I'm looking at Isaiah Horton because that's who I have to compete with.
He's going to beat on Isaiah Horton. Badger's better than Horton, okay? Horton's fine. But Badger's experienced, and he's really, really good. My point is, what you're missing again, Gary, my point is, why would Badger come to Miami? Miami is going to, A, have to offer the most money by far.
You think he's better than what's here?
B, they're going to have to convince him that he's going to be the guy. And how do you convince him he's going to be the guy when you have Xavier Restrepo back and Jacoby George back and Arroyo healthy, who was supposed to be an amazing receiver last year? And now you got this Lofton guy who's going to be playing running back and receiver and tight end. And, I don't know that you convince somebody that they belong here. And you know what? If you're not getting Badger, I don't even try to get another receiver. I don't need to kick someone else off the team for that, because Horton's fine. JoJo Trader should play. JoJo Trader should play. JoJo should play, and so should Ray Joseph. Those guys should play. And last year, they only really used 4 receivers that were productive. Horton did nothing. The 4th guy was Brashard Smith. I think they have 5 really good receivers, maybe 6 or 7 with Nikar and Chance Robinson. I don't know. You need a so-so receiver. And if this free agent guy doesn't want to come, I don't know. You take him. And you know what? I'd rather spend that NIL money on a different position. I just don't think they need a number 3 free agent receiver who's going to be their 3rd option. I'd rather spend that money on a defensive tackle. I'd rather spend that money on a running back. I'd rather spend that money, keep the money for the future. I just don't think you need to spend it. But Mario wants to do what Mario wants to do, and whatever. That's just my opinion. People are going to hate me, but that's just my truth. I don't take him. I don't care that he's a free agent receiver. I don't take him. We don't need him. We need other free agents at different positions. Defensive tackle, maybe even defensive end, depending on Messidor, right? And a cornerback and a safety. Get the free agents there. They're getting a free agent at the one position. They don't need a free agent. They already got 2 free agents. They're called Jacoby George and Xavier Restrepo. I don't understand. The problem right now is on defense. Everyone at Miami just loves this glossy offense with Cam Ward. Let's give Cam Ward 50 targets that he can throw to. Let's give Cam Ward 10 running backs that he can hand the ball to. Let's give Cam Ward another offensive lineman at center who barely took a bite of breakfast in California and wanted to come home. like, what about the defense, man? Cornerback and safety are a mess. Linebacker, you got 2 guys and then nothing proven. Defensive end, you got 1 guy and 1 guy who can't even walk without special shoes. And you have no defensive tackles that are really, really good that I saw. I mean, they brought in C.J. Clark, but he was a backup for half the spring. Like, I don't understand why the fixation is spend the money in NIL at receiver right now. Call me crazy, Gary. I'm sure you disagree with me because you always do, but I don't get it.
All right. Number 1. Good morning, my man, Jay Collette on the CaneSport.com message boards. Let's tell him, Matt, you can walk and you can chew gum, okay? Just because they take a wide receiver doesn't mean they can't take a safety. Doesn't mean they can't take a corner.
I happen to know. I told you.
Can't take a linebacker.
I know their NIL.
They can do both. They have the budget to do both. They can do both. Okay, that's
I know how much money they have in NIL. Okay, and I told you that. And it's not unlimited.
They can do both.
So I'll save the money for somebody I think deserves it a little bit more than at a position that they really need. That's just me.
They can do both, and there's nobody that's commanding the whole budget. There's nobody out there that commands that kind of money. Okay, now, here's what you're missing, okay? You're not recruiting this Badger guy, for example, and saying, hey, man, we're all set here at receiver. You're going to be our number 3 guy if you come here, or maybe even number 4 if you can't beat out Isaiah Horton. So,
let me ask you a question, Ferman. Let me ask you a question.
Anyway, they're not telling him that, okay? They're not telling him that.
Of course not.
He is coming
because
here.
He's an idiot who doesn't understand that Miami has a depth chart. He won't even look at it. They'll just believe whatever they tell. They'll just believe anything. We have nobody, Mr. Badger. We have no receivers coming back, Mr. Badger. Please help us. That's what you believe?
He's better than Restrepo. What if he's better than Jacoby George and more reliable? What if he's better than anybody in the room, and now he takes that room to another level? We don't know until he gets here. We see him compete with, in this program. Okay, quite honestly, we could turn on all the highlights at Arizona State, and they're great. And we had a video on the story I did over the weekend. It showed every touchdown he scored last year. Hurrah, hurrah, hurrah. Okay, that's great. But we don't really know how he stacks up with the guys here until he gets here. So when they're recruiting these guys, they're not limiting their upside. They're not saying you have no chance to be our number 1 or number 2. They say we are bringing you in the play, okay? And from there, games determine stats, defenses determine stats, Shannon Dawson's play calls determine stats. This stuff isn't preordained. Like, if Badger comes in here, he's not preordained to be the number 3 wide receiver on next year's team. Okay, so that's something you're missing. Okay, the goal, get better. Okay, just flat get better. If you get Martinez, it doesn't mean that Christopher Johnson, who made a great move this spring, isn't going to get opportunities to impact games in the fall. He is going to. He earned it this spring. They need more at running back. They're bringing Martinez in without limitations. I mean, Fletcher probably is not going to make it to the starting line, and they need a guy like Martinez, and he'll be a great pickup if they get him. I'm still watching though for what's his name at North Carolina, but he hasn't gone in the portal as of yet. But so we still believe that Martinez is going to be the Miami guy at running back. But we'll see how that plays out. But the point I'm making is any of these guys, and I'll mention a few more on the offensive line. They're chasing Jason Zandamela. They didn't come into this saying, man, we got to have an offensive lineman in this recruiting class. They saw Zandamela go in the portal. He's a center. The freshman center is struggling, and they can use a center that can help them this year, even if he's number 2 behind Carpenter. So Zandamela starts to make sense. Okay, but on defense, totally agree with you. They need help, and they're looking at a Michigan State defensive tackle, Simeon Barrow, who looks to me like he would help a lot. I'm not as sure, like you'll like this. I'm not so sure about CJ West from Kent State. Okay, if a guy from Kent State is ready to come in here and be better than what Miami has on the defensive line, and they just have not been recruiting as well as we think they have. So we'll see. We'll see what happens there. We are expecting a linebacker at Louisville, a guy by the name of Jalen Alderman, to go into the portal today. We keep hearing Jalen Alderman. He's going into the portal. He's interested in Miami. We're going to find out because I think he's going in the portal today, and we're going to see if he does, in fact, have interest in Miami. on the surface, I wasn't thrilled that a backup defensive back at Florida State, he plays nickel. His name's Greedy Vance. He's in the portal. Very interested in Miami. And I wasn't thrilled about this one. But then I realized he could play nickel. Mish Powell was doing so-so at nickel. It might allow them to take him and put him at safety with Savion Riley possibly, and give them some flexibility at defensive back if they're able to land this guy. So I think that's why this one makes sense. I also think they're going to get this cornerback from Marshall. It makes too much sense for him to come here. Deani Hill, he's visiting this weekend. And we think he will come here. He's familiar with the defense. He's Lance Guidry, Chevis Jackson, both coached him at Marshall. So it makes a lot of sense for him to come. But Matt, the bottom line, and we already talked about this, so we won't do it again, but there's no earth-shattering program altering guys that are going to be coming in here more than likely, other than Martinez could be that kind of dude. I love his tape. And I think he could be that kind of dude, especially with Mark Fletcher, looking kind of shaky to make the start of the season. I think they would love the redshirt Fletcher this year. Let him get healthy and let Martinez carry the load. Jay Allen should be back for the season. Christopher Johnson was doing great in spring. Wheatley Humphrey is another one that was doing pretty well in spring. So we'll see how that all plays out. We'll see how the portal plays out. But don't lose faith. There will be a lot happening this week in both directions. Make sure you stay tuned to CaneSport.com for all the latest developments in the transfer portal. It's going to be a very, very, very interesting week. All right, let's move on to some other subjects here, Matt. And, let's talk a little bit about the football team. We continue our analysis coming off of spring ball. Today we take a look at the quarterback position, and we take a look at the running back position. And listen, quarterback, Cam Ward changed that room and took it to a whole different perspective. And then when you take Reese Poppenberger now as the likely backup, and Emory Williams bouncing off that injury as number 3, Ja'Cory Brown went to the portal. We've beaten that subject to death, and he had no choice really. It would have been foolish for Ja'Cory to stay here and be the 4th team quarterback with the chance of being passed up by Judd Anderson. We wish him well. We think he will be very successful somewhere else. So the quarterback room's in a good place. The running back position does have some issues, as that article points out, Matt. But if they get Martinez, it takes on a whole different look.
Yeah, look, I'm against not taking. I don't want free agents in the portal unless they're seniors that are gone and you have room for them. And Miami doesn't have room for anybody right now, so I only want free agents. Martinez is a free agent, and Martinez is the exact reason you go in the portal. It's like, when you go on a date, you have the certain boxes you're checking off. First of all, you have to be single, right? You're not going on a date if you're married. Well, I can't speak for you, Gary, but most people aren't going on a date if they're married. So Miami's single at running back. They got 2 guys that left, including a starter from last year. They got their other starter from last year who's injured and, like Gary said, severely questionable for the start of the season. So Miami's not, there's nothing right now at running back. Miami's like, they're on J-Date. They're on, whatever else, Hinge right now. And they're looking for the perfect fit. And Martinez is the perfect fit. That's essentially what they're getting and what they need and what I think they will land. I think they will get him. And that's super important. And he will be a featured back at Miami. He will not be sharing reps. I see this being a guy who's going to get 20 plus carries a game, and he has the body for it also. And then the change of pace guy can be Christopher Johnson. Which I think is fine. Now, in general, like you said, we talked about quarterbacks and running backs. We don't have to rehash. People already know what it's all about. But big picture, I always like to look big picture and just see what's what and talk about actual reality versus what Gary usually talks about. So last year, Miami averaged 31.5 points. There were 7 teams in the country that averaged 39 or more points. I think it's fair to say that Tyler Van Dyke cost Miami a lot of points with his interceptions, a lot of them in the red zone. And I think it's also fair to say that Cam Ward is a much better player than Tyler Van Dyke. I think it's also fair to say the Miami offensive line has 3 starters who will be better than last year because they're older. And I think that they have, Samson Okunlola. I like a lot of these guys, even Markel Bell. Like, they have a lot of guys now. I would say they have better depth in the offensive line also. Tight end room's improved. Receivers room is just as good, if not better, with Xavier, Jacoby having a year under his belt. And I think Horton's more than good. And the depth there is excellent. I think JoJo Trader showed this spring he's ready to be a big impact player. We already talked about this. Ray. I mean, you go down the line, even Nikar looked good, etc. You got 6-7 guys in that room that are super talented. So to me, there's no reason this offense can't be a touchdown better. I think that's the goal. A touchdown, just for your math, Gary, because I know you have trouble with it, 31.5 plus 7 is 38.5. We're going to round it up to 39, okay? Because the last time that Miami football team averaged 39 or more points, believe it or not, was 2002, okay? And the 2 prior years to that, they averaged over 40 points. I think it was 42 and 43 points. But that's when Miami was competing for championships. That's what it takes to be a championship team nowadays. You've got to be in that 38 plus, 39 plus point range on offense and have at least a decent defense. So again, the issue to me is the defense. And that's why it's a shame that, hey, it's great to add, of course you need a free agent running back, right? But they're also not dating anybody at defensive tackle right now. They're totally single, and they're not on Hinge, and they're not on J-Date looking for that great guy. They got, I don't want to cast aspersions, but they got a not great looking chick right now on the hook. All right. At defensive tackle, they can go on a date with the chick. I don't think it's going to work out in the end. All right. Same problem with linebacker depth, same problem at cornerback and at safety. We don't know what Damari Brown's going to be. He started the last 4 games out of necessity. He looked okay. He didn't look great. He looked okay. And they have Darryl Porter, who, by the way, had 0 interceptions. He's their returning starter. They have no safeties that I saw that looked any good. Like, these are the areas they need free agents. And it's great to get one at running back. Certainly need it. But this is the defense, with the assumption Miami will be a touchdown better, which I think it will be. And I think they would be even without a great running back. I think they'd still be there because that's how good Cam Ward is. The defense might be giving up 30 or more points also. Like, they might not be good on defense. That's my concern. And when you see the second portal window and Gary's saying, oh, well, the talent that he thought was going to be in there, probably that Miami thought was going to be there, is not, a lot of that reflects on the defense. And that's my major concern. And if there's no more top defensive players that go in the portal in the next 6 days, that's a big problem for Miami, because I don't know that their roster on defense right now is even average in the ACC. And if you have an offense that's just struggling for even a half against FSU, struggling for even a half against Louisville, struggling for even a half against some of these, average ACC teams, like, you don't know what's going to happen. And that's the problem we've had with these Miami teams for the last 20 years. Some years the offense has been pretty good, and those years the defense has sucked. You can still say sucked. And the years the defense has been really good, like Manny Diaz's first couple of years, the offense has sucked. Like, there hasn't been a year where both have been great. And I just see this again, where this year I think the offense is going to be great, off the charts great. And I fear the defense is going to be the same thing, where one part of the team's great and one part of the team isn't. And it's very hard to be a championship team like that, to be an ACC championship team, because they're not a national championship team, but they could compete in a very weak ACC for an ACC title this year. They should have 10-plus wins. There's no excuses not to. But again, it would be really nice to have a couple of free agent defensive portal pieces, which I don't see on the radar as of right now.
Well, one of the guys that's going to be a big determining factor in that defense is Mish Powell, who is the nickelback right now. If they can get Vance from Florida State to play nickelback, he'll move to safety. We got a story on him on the website today. I encourage you guys to check out. But he will go. His play will undoubtedly go.
And by the way, I neglected to mention him. Of course, yeah, he's a good player.
Yeah. Well, his play is going to go a long way to toward determining where Miami goes. But I like where Miami's at defensive end, but I have to agree with you, Matt. I mean, I like Francisco Magoa at middle linebacker, but for the most part, there's a lot of questions on defense as how good these guys really are. I mean, every team lines up with 11 guys on defense. How good is the Miami defense going to be? And I think it's a legit question. And I do think that they were expecting there to be more than what they're finding in the portal. And maybe there will be this week. Maybe Another defensive end pops in there this week. Maybe they land that defensive tackle from Michigan State, and things start to look a little bit better. But it was telling, I thought. CBS Sports put out a ranking this week of the top 100 football players in college football in 2024, and 4 Miami Hurricanes made the list, but 3 of them are on offense. Like Matt says, Cam Ward, Xavier Restrepo, and Francis Manoa. Manoa. I need to start saying Manoa.
Yeah,
but
now we know.
And then of course Ruben Bain is on there as well. I'm not convinced Messidor doesn't belong if he's healthy, but nobody knows if he's going to be healthy. They're expecting him to be healthy, but it is an offense-heavy football team right now, Matt. And there's no getting around it. So we'll have to see what happens here in the next week. In an ideal world, they get a couple defensive linemen, a linebacker, and a couple defensive backs that make them better. Okay, and they may not be free agents by your definition, and that might be fair in these cases, but hopefully they find guys that make them better to justify, like you said, guys being told they have to leave. Like, they got to make the football team better. They can't just be roster fillers. So we'll see how that goes. As always, we have a wide assortment of recruiting news on the website that's not related to the transfer portal. Stephen and Azubi, our resident recruiting writers, created a question and answer thread that you could find on the website, and it's on the message boards, and they're answering all kinds of recruiting questions in there. So feel free to participate in that. We have a story on Ohio State linebacker commit TJ Alford. You can get the latest on him, and we'll give you a little hint. Miami is not totally out of the running, even though he is committed to Ohio State, and he actually has a Miami Hurricanes official visit set. Make sure you check out that story, get caught up on him. We've got a story on priority running back recruit Shakai Mills-Knight. He is also locked in an official visit. He tells us all about that. On a side note, Miami baseball continued to struggle this past weekend against Louisville. They dropped the first 2 before breaking a 6-game losing streak and blowing out Louisville on Sunday. And Matt, we will let's end the show here with a little baseball talk. What a disaster of a season this is. I don't know where things are going from here, but they didn't get out of their comfort zone when they hired a replacement for Gino DiMare. And not surprisingly, as many times it becomes the case, when you just take the easy rate, the lazy way, and you elevate an assistant coach to the head job, things more than not don't go well. This season is not going well at all, Matt.
No, but the good news for Miami is they have final series in the ACC against Georgia Tech, Virginia Tech, and Pittsburgh, which, if I'm not mistaken, I think Virginia Tech's the only one that has a winning record, and it's not even by that much in the ACC. So I think right now Miami's five games under 500. They haven't finished with a losing record since the 1950s when you were 24 years old, I think, right? And that's probably about right. And so look, at this point, finishing with 500 is a victory for Miami. The real question to me is what Dan Radakovich does, because it's a bit of a mess. And over the weekend, some people were asking me why the baseball team can't be competitive and hasn't really been super competitive for a while. And part of it is the scholarship issue where, I think the average Miami fan knows this, but a lot of average people don't, which is people seem to assume that every Miami baseball player is on a full scholarship, like in basketball and football. And that is absolutely not the case. They get, I think it's 12.5 scholarships for the entire team. A half scholarship for a player is considered a pretty big scholarship. So at a school like Miami, with nothing else factoring in, if it's an $80,000 tuition, room and board, you're paying $40,000 out of your pocket. The University of Florida, where if you're in state, what is it, like under 10 grand or something? You're saving 35 grand. So some private schools are able to supplement it with certain types of whatever, not trust, whatever it is. There's Vanderbilt has one, whatever it is. They have these tons of money that they can give essentially to players. But Miami really isn't at that level, and that's caused all kinds of problems. So until Miami's on an even playing field with every school, which basically, I mean, the NCAA again, why can't every baseball player, why can't they have 25 baseball scholarships a year? Why is that so hard to do? And I understand that you have to have women's sports to equate all the scholarships out, and I get it. But why is baseball being punished compared to basketball and football? Because it doesn't make as much money? Like, that's not fair. A student athlete wants to play baseball, not football or basketball, and he gets punished. I don't know if that's right. I understand there's also golf and tennis and whatever. There's not even a men's track team or men's diving team at UM, but there is women's, because again, you have to have a certain number of women's scholarships percent-wise within the men's. That's just Title IX. But again, until that's fixed, Miami fans can blame JD. They can blame everyone at Miami all they want for the last, whatever it's been, 10 years approximately, of not going to the World Series consistently or at all. But they're battling against something that they don't have control over unless they're given millions of dollars in these funds that some of these other major private schools have to dole out every year to baseball players. So it's a big problem. And I feel bad for JD, nicest guy in the world, has been through a lot in his life. And I'm sure this has been a devastating season for him, as a person, as a coach, based on what he was hoping to accomplish. Nobody wants to win more than he does, more than his coaching staff does. And at the end of the day, yeah, you blame JD. But do you give him another year is the bottom line question. I imagine Miami will. And I think part of the reason they hired JD in the first place was A, because it was easy to do. B, he's been a Hurricane forever as a pitcher, as a pitching coach. And C, because the guy who left probably has a little bit of money he can keep giving to Miami if he's happy with the program, and he loves JD. Those two guys are buddies. But at some point, there will be a tipping point for Dan Radakovich where he has to say, maybe I should actually do my job and make this a winning baseball team and figure out what that's going to take. And that might take figuring out how to get money into that freaking program like Vanderbilt and some of these other programs do. Because without that, it doesn't matter who you hire. You could dig Babe Ruth up from the grave, resuscitate him, and make him the coach at Miami, and he will not have more success than JD Arteaga until you set up a fair system where they can compete on an equal ground with all the other public schools out there, where kids are basically going for free compared to what it costs to go to Miami on a half scholarship. And I'm not recommending you dig Babe Ruth out of the ground, by the way. Leave Babe alone, but it was just an example. Don't bring up Babe Ruth. It would not go over well. And A, it's going to be disgusting to try to resuscitate him. He's probably all desiccated, dirt everywhere. It would be disgusting. Do not resuscitate Babe Ruth. It was a bad idea. I take that part back. Delete that part, Gary, and just the whole part about the can't compete, blah, 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 blah. Give JD another year probably because it's just easier to do that, and la, 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 la. And Dan Radakovich sails off into the sunset, and we're good with that. Let's leave it at that. Yeah, delete all the rest of it. All right. Yeah, take out the Babe Ruth.
With that, that's going to end it for Good Morning CaneSport today. We put you guys out there out of your misery of any more of this diatribe. If you like the show, like this channel, hit your subscribe and like buttons. It does help us with the algorithms at YouTube in growing our audience. If you are watching on YouTube, if you're watching on our player on our site, that's fine as well. If you're not yet a subscriber to CaneSport.com, please hustle on over to our site and become a member. Your subscriptions allow us to do what we do every single day, and we will do the best that we can do to enhance.
You think people are actually subscribing after watching this freaking show? Nobody's subscribing.
My God, I hope so. I hope so.
Better chance. Tell people don't subscribe. So like when you tell a kid don't do that, it just makes them want to do that. Tell people don't subscribe, and then maybe they'll subscribe. How about that? Have you been monitoring how many subscriptions you get based on the amount of time people actually watch the end of the show? Those 8 people that watch to the very end and hear you say, please subscribe to our channel, subscribe to CaneSport.
I probably should say it at the beginning, quite honestly, but
I would say don't subscribe. I'd say don't check out the website. Yeah. Do not subscribe. Whatever you do out there, don't go to the website today. It's a disaster. And then everyone's going to the website. They're going to see what's so terrible at this website. They'll want to go look. That's what you should be doing. Say the website today is a real disaster. It's everything's screwed up. It's all out of focus. I can't even tell what's going on. It looks like an alligator, not a crocodile. I
That's
can't
a
even
disaster.
see what's in front of my eyes. Crocodile. And then maybe we'll go to the website. That's what you should be doing. That's marketing, Gary. I could teach you something about marketing if you want.
All right.
So what are you going to tell people? Tell people, don't go to let me hear you say it. Don't go to the website. Don't subscribe. Let's hear it. That'll get people doing it.
Don't listen to Matt. Go to CaneSport.com. Become a member of our community. You won't be sorry. But that's going to do it for today for Good Morning CaneSport. Thank you so much for starting out your day with us, and we will see you next time, everybody.